Hello and welcome to my podcast, Up Your Total Glow, your podcast for your body, mind and soul to support, guide and empower you to uncover a healthier, happier version of yourself. I am super excited that you're here because if you ask me, there's nothing that looks and feels better. In today's episode, I'm speaking with the absolutely amazing Ben Smith. Ben is a fitness and nutrition coach, entrepreneur, army veteran, and mental health advocate. And he developed an online training for high-performing individuals all over the world. Currently, he travels the globe as performance coach for clients in the music industry. Ben is all about promoting holistic mind-body wellness, and his way of starting this transformational journey is via fitness, which he makes attainable for all. In this interview, among many other things, we speak about his own journey from a failed suicide attempt to uncovering a way healthier, happier and more empowered version of himself, and how he now even empowers others along the same ways. He speaks about how self-regulation techniques saved his life. We speak about diet, movement, cold exposure, motivation, overwhelm, breathwork, and so many other things. This interview is rich in wisdom, knowledge, and experience, and totally for you if you are ready to start your journey towards a more empowered, happier, and healthier version of yourself. Please enjoy. Hello and welcome, dear Ben. I am so excited to have you here today for this interview. Thank you so much for taking time. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. I think we have a little bit of a time difference, so I'm just winding down my day, but it's been a good one, and I'm really excited to sit and chat with you for a bit. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we do have a little bit of a time difference. It's really cool, how we can connect these days. Anywhere, everywhere, at any time. So while you're winding down, I'm just getting started with my day, and I couldn't think of a better start than chatting to you. So would you introduce yourself to my audience? Who are you?
Yeah, of course.
What are you doing?
My name is Ben Smith. I'd call myself a performance coach, but I work as a strength conditioning coach, a nutrition coach, and a mindset coach, and I kind of roll all of those things into a holistic wellness practice where I coach individuals. Basically, the goal of the whole thing is just to achieve self-regulation or get closer to having the ability to calm yourself down in a potentially stressful situation. And we just use fitness and intentional steps towards proper nutrition, and then ultimately some cool mindset work and exposure practices that get us closer to that thing. So I'd say that I'm a fitness coach. That's the title that I normally say, but performance coach is this thing that I'm stepping into, and I really like that role too.
So exciting and so amazing, and I am a huge fan of your work.
Thank you.
I would love for you to tell my audience how this all happened, because I know that you weren't born as a fitness coach or performance coach or whatever you want to call yourself. And I find personally that none of these titles truly match who you truly are, because you are just, I don't know how to put it, but what you do with your clients is just life changing. You are so amazing, and yes, it has such a huge impact, and Yeah, but let's unravel. So tell us more about you and
So
your journey, please.
yeah, yes, I could start at the very beginning. As a young kid, my identity was tied to how well I performed in athletics. I was an athlete first. My worth as a son, as a friend, as a classmate, as a you know, in every domain of my life, it was like, oh, Ben's just like really good at sports. And I know that's not true. I know that, I brought other value to the table and like, people have their own experience of me. But for myself, I was like, okay, I'm the athlete. And I really prided myself on that identity. And then I transitioned out of youth athletics into, high school athletics. And then ultimately, I joined the military and went to the United States Military Academy. And there, athletics was a massive part of my experience. But then also, too, I found this new place to focus my efforts where that was like leadership and military proficiency. And I, instead of being like the best athlete or priding myself on being an athlete, it was like, oh, I'm this like really capable leader and I'm this guy that people look to. And then so my identity was not still not Ben. It was just like this guy who happened to be a leader, an example for others. And I really rode that into my late 20s. I exited the military at 28, so about 5 years ago. And I got out and I no longer had the athlete identity. I no longer had the soldier identity. I no longer had this leadership identity. I was doing digital marketing sales. And I, for lack of a better term, had this identity crisis. It ultimately turned into me losing my mind, and I went through my own mental health struggles, and I attempted suicide a couple times, and was doing all the wrong things. And so it took, it took a pretty grave couple experiences to push me back into the thing that I really loved, which happened to be not the athletics per se, but the team aspects, or the team building aspects of sport, and then the coaching, teaching, and mentorship roles that I had while I was in the military. And so those were the things that I was really passionate about connecting with the individual, about guiding someone through a transformation. And I said it to you the first time we spoke, but it's like, as a coach, I'm just coaching myself and I invite other people to participate in the journey with me. And so I learn more from the individuals I work with than they have ever learned from me. And I really love that. And I love that it's been able to stay that way. Selfishly, I love that because I'm growing. But it's also been a really cool and collaborative experience to you know, work with somebody over an extended period of time. I know that's not often the case in our line of work in the coaching space. It's there's a lot of churn. People jump around quite often, but I think I've been very lucky in finding some people who are very committed to the things that they say that they want, and they understand that that takes a lot of time and a lot of work. Uh, and it's just been I know it's like a long answer, but it's just been a really special experience for me. And I'm very excited to continue growing as a coach myself and evolving the practice because it's, like we said very early on, is it performance coach? Is it fitness coach? Is it spiritual practitioner? Is it guide? What is it? And I'm not really sure yet, but I'm excited to find out.
I'm very excited for this to happen too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yes, there was so much in this answer. So
Yeah.
first of all, I think we all can relate to an identity crisis at some point in
Yeah.
our lives. I know I certainly can. For me, for a long time, I was holding on to, I'm not good for anything, but I look good. I mean, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's a horrible identity to carry. Like, I think that's the worst identity you can carry. But this is what
It's
my
a tough one.
outward world mirrored to me, Everyone was like, yeah, you are this model, you've got the perfect figure, yeah, but you're not good for anything else. It's really brutal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I feel the sooner we are able, to shed any of those identities that clearly we are not, because
Right.
to be really spiritual, I believe in the essence we are love. That's who we all are. And then all
Right.
these other codes we just try on, and nothing wrong with that, as long as we don't get overly identified with
Sure.
it. Yeah. But I love that you are sharing this. And then you just brushed over, oh yeah, you attempted suicide.
Yeah.
Such a yeah, deep journey, and I hear a lot of suffering in there. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, very often I hear and get to experience that it is from this suffering that we then experience so much growth and so much learning and can share this with others. And also, I can also relate to what you said, you feel you're coaching yourself and then sharing this coaching with the world around you, with the clients, and you, accelerate each other, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But I also feel that because you mentioned, oh, you're very lucky that those clients have stayed with you for a long time. I believe you simply attracted the right clients and they are super happy to be working with you. And of course, they want to stay with you because you bring the best out in them. There's so much authenticity and depth and richness to your work and to, any of these answers already. So I would like to dive a little bit deeper in. So can you share with us how, and I know this will be difficult to say in a few words, but how do you help your clients to perform better, to transform their lives? Because I think this is really what you do. And yes, you've got the tools, you've got the tools as a fitness coach, as a nutrition coach, but so where do you start with your clients? What does this look like?
I try and get really clear on what it is that they are after. Like, what is the thing that they're chasing? And it could be transformation, it could be some result. But I think if you really like boil it down, if they can get incredibly clear on what it is that they actually want, then it's rather simple to create or craft a solution that caters to that end goal. And I'm very interested in like simplifying things. I want to make it as simple and as clear as possible. And so my task or like my charge for myself with a client is to like, yes, we know there's a million different ways or a million different levers we could pull to get us closer to that end goal. But I'm really curious about finding what's the next right manageable step for that individual. And it's like through this slow, deliberate process of adding or oftentimes subtracting stressors that can get you closer and closer to that end goal. So what I like to do is really just start to ask questions. And I think where a lot of coaches might go wrong, at least initially or very young in their coaching career, is they're incredibly interested in like telling or sharing information or like coaching somebody or like proving how much they know. And a lot of the work that I do is simply just sitting and listening. I sit, I ask questions, and I just listen. And if you really listen, people will tell you the things that they actually want, or they'll show you, more than likely, they'll show you the things that they actually want. And they'll also like be able to describe to you the things, like if you're truly listening and truly interacting with that person, they can share with you a lot about what's happening in their life outside of, the short times that you have together. Like I spend most of the time silent and I just listen. And it's been, I've been doing this for a long time now. It's taken, a decade to sort out how I need to interact with somebody. I was very early on in my life, I was under the impression that a one size fits all approach might work. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I understand that, our situations, although they might not be as unique as we perceive them, it does take a little bit of intention and a little bit of, individualization to like really get somebody lasting results. And I hit on it very early, but I said, a deliberate steps, a deliberate practice towards whatever the goal is. And I think if people can just understand, or I try and share that this takes far longer than you might imagine. Like I've been working at this for my entire adult life and I'm nowhere near where I, thought I might be. And so I think when people have that understanding and they're open to the potential or they're open to the possibility of struggling, then, you know, the sky's the limit in what you can achieve. And that's like been a really cool thing for me to learn for myself.
Beautiful. Absolutely. I love it. And I love that you're sharing that coaching is much more about giving the other person this space of unconditional love, where you just listen and be with them so they can truly show themselves, like not that picture of, you know, who they perceive they are, or who they would like to be, because this might be something completely different. I love that. And I feel that I definitely went wrong there in my first years of coaching as well. It was more about, okay, I can fix you. I know how to do this. I've got all my nutrition cut out, and you know, I love nutrition. This is like so fun. I love the science, and I love the ancient wisdom, and I love to combine it all, and I want to share. But the other person,
I want to solve all the problems for you.
Exactly.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head, where it's like, I say this all the time. It's like the goal of my role in the relationship is to just create a safe space for you to do something or feel comfortable doing something that's inherently scary. Like, I'm just here to like hold your hand while you do that. And then second, I'm hoping to allow you or help you to build enough confidence where you see that you can be in control of this thing and you can take ownership of the change, because I'm not the one that's changing you. You're the one that's changing you. And it's the sooner you realize that, and it takes people, you know, some people longer than others, but the sooner you realize that you're fully capable and you have all of the things you already need to make all of the changes you've ever wanted to make, then real change and real transformation starts to happen.
So empowering and so beautiful. And I would just like to add, on a very physical level, it's the same with the body. You know, the body can inherently heal itself. And I think this is such an empowering thing to realize for most of my clients. There's nothing wrong with their body, and the body can always heal and rebalance if we just nourish and support the body the right way. And of course, this is much more holistic than just the body.
Of course.
But I love that you said that. Okay.
I do a lot of work with a lot of the work that I do now started as me working in a sober companionship or sober coaching capacity. I don't use hard drugs or alcohol anymore. And so I work with a lot of individuals, especially creatives, who maybe were relying too much on alcohol or drugs. And so I have several clients that our primary mission is creating a space where they may no longer feel compelled to use substances. And I've learned that the mindset of a lot of those individuals, myself included, is that I'm broken, there's something wrong with me, I'm incapable of doing this really hard thing. And as soon, you can see it almost like a light switch, as soon as they realize, or to Ben, as soon as I realized that like I am fully capable of no longer relying on this crutch or this distraction, like I said before, the sky is the limit. Like, there's no ceiling on what you can't or what you can achieve. It's so cool. And it's just a perspective shift.
I 100%, 1000% agree with you. Absolutely. And I love that you are able to help your clients shift this perspective, because it sounds, okay, that sounds very logical, but it's harder than it sounds to really,
of course, it is,
that place in someone else, because we are all very protective about our self-beliefs, about our identities, about the life we have created. And we might also be fearful, as much as we want this different life and this better future, we might also be very fearful of, what does this look like? And, you know, may I just let myself down again, and all these things. So I think, I just really want to make sure my audience understands that it's not such an easy to do process, and even
No,
though you
horrible.
make sounded very, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, it's horribly challenging.
Yeah.
So, everything that you do in your life, I'm gonna try and say this eloquently, but basically everything that you do just shows you what you want, truly.
Yeah.
And it's people like, oh, this horrible thing in my life, I don't want that at all. But the results speak otherwise. And maybe it's to like keep you stuck in a narrative that doesn't really serve you, but it keeps you safe. It keeps you from stepping into something that's potentially more uncomfortable. Um, and I think those beliefs that are tied to our identity, or you said something very similar, where it's like those things that we truly identify with are the hardest things to change. So a younger Ben was like the life of the party, the guy that was always drinking, the guy that was always, like leading the charge into like a really fun experience. And I thought that was the only reason that people valued me. And it took 5 years for me to sort out that that wasn't the case. And I was making all this up in my head, but it was, extensive therapy work and and a whole bunch of other stuff that got me to really see that, those things weren't actually serving me, and the identities or the beliefs that I had about myself surrounding those negative things weren't actually uh, the things that would allow me to become my highest self or my most actualized self, which I'm nowhere near that, but I'm every day trying to get a little bit closer.
Mm.
So it's not easy, but by taking the next right manageable step, or the thing that was like, simplest at the time, it allowed me to get closer to where I am today.
And once we get started, it's so exciting. It's scary, but it's super
Yeah.
exciting. And I feel once we get started, we almost can't stop anymore, because
Yeah.
on a very basic level, I for myself didn't know how amazing I actually could feel in my body. And
Yeah.
yeah, this already, I never want to go back to anything else than just feel full of vitality and power and
Yeah.
strength. And, not that I haven't days where I'm tired and fatigued. That's not,
Yeah.
I'm very normal and I'm overdoing things,
Right.
nowhere near from perfect. But in general, the base level is so different to me in my 20s. And yeah, I'm super grateful for that. Okay, I would like to go a little bit back to this Ben who
Sure.
felt completely broken, who tried
Yeah.
to commit suicide.
Yep.
How did you pull yourself out of this hole, out of this horrible place where I guess you didn't want to be here anymore. You didn't see your purpose. You didn't see your why. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more, because I think this is really powerful. And unfortunately, I think more people than we think can relate to this really dark space.
Yeah. And I love the way that you put that, where you say, you just didn't want to be here anymore. And had you asked me then 5 years ago, Ben, what's the reason? Like, why did you choose to do that? I would have said, oh, I just didn't want to be here anymore. I lost the fulfillment in my work. I didn't have any passion for life. And like, sure, all of those things existed, but after doing some pretty extensive therapy and taking like a long, hard look at what I was feeling and what I was experiencing, I think in the most basic sense, I was just in pain, and I didn't have the tools or the toolkit to express how I was feeling or navigate those emotions. And I was terrified to ask people for help. I thought I was a burden. And, that comes from programming as a child, or like even more like, I was in the military for 10 years, and there's a general sentiment that, maybe asking for help isn't the best
Toughness.
choice.
Yeah.
I would argue that it's the greatest gift you can give yourself is asking for help when you need it. But I just didn't have the tools. I didn't know where to turn, and I'd never had to really address any of the emotions I was feeling. So, as a child, when I was struggling with difficult emotions, I would turn to athletics, or I would turn to food to numb. And I got pretty good at numbing those ways. And then, when I was a young professional, I would turn to my work, or I would turn to food, or now alcohol as an adult, to numb.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just like a critical mass. All the things came together, and I attempted suicide, and came out of that experience the first time and I was like, oh my gosh, what have you done?
Mm.
Like, what have you done? This is like, you don't do this. And I
Mm.
remember distinctly feeling like, oh my gosh, this is not the person that your family raised. And I had all these, I had this identity where I was like, oh, I'm like, my parents' child, and I'm like this beacon of light for the family. And like, how could this guy do this? And then all the feelings came back about 10 times greater. And I, attempted again and it didn't work out. And thank God I had a roommate who was well versed in the trauma world. He himself was a life coach, and
Mm.
we ended up talking about the experience. I shared some things with him, and he was like, "You're going to therapy.
Right.
You're going to therapy. I don't care what you say. You're going to therapy." And so he basically drove me in his car to my first ever therapy session in January of 2019,
Mm.
and I haven't looked back. So to answer your original question, how did I get out of it? I had one guy. There
Mm.
was one guy who saw me
Mm.
struggling.
Yeah.
And he like I tried to run away. I tried to tell him no. I tried to be like, no, this isn't right. I don't need this. And he wouldn't take no for an answer.
Mm.
And so I owe my growth as a person, as a man, and even as a coach to him and his example. And so now I just try and be that for everyone that I work with, or everyone that's in my circle, or everyone that's in my family. And it's a funny thing because you think that you do all this work and then like those problems don't come up anymore or those feelings don't exist anymore. And that's not the case. It's not the case at all. They
I
exist.
agree.
like like I'm depressed all the time. I'm anxious all the time.
Mm.
But now I have a pretty extensive toolkit
Mm.
that I can employ in nearly every situation that can prove valuable or at least take me out of um, you know, a sticky situation or a heavy situation. And it's been really cool. Like training, I love connecting everything to training because at the end of the day, I'm a meathead that just like has now broadened the scope of his work. But it's like you go to the gym 3 days a week for a month. That's 12 exposures. You're probably not going to see much change. But you go to the gym 3 days a week for 12 years.
Mm.
That's a whole bunch of exposures and you're a totally different person on the back end. So I've been approaching my emotional work or my spiritual work in the same way, where it's like very early on, I was like, God, I don't know if this is working for me. Or like my meditation practice, it's like, I don't know if this is really valuable. But I look back at the guy that didn't know how to handle his feelings or express what he was going through, and I'm like, I'm a totally different person.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful for that. And if I'm able to like, if one of your listeners is hearing this and it's like, oh, I'm trying all these things and I don't feel like it's working. The only way that you blow it is if you give up and if you quit.
Mm.
This is coming from a guy who's literally tried to quit everything in his life. Just one foot in front of the other, the next right manageable step, and then you just don't quit. You
Mm.
just keep going for the rest of your life, and you'll get there.
Mm. Totally. And again, so empowering what you're sharing. Thank you so much for being
Yeah,
so honest about and
yeah.
so
I know. I know.
authentic.
I know I'm like rather flippant with like talking about it. Like, you said earlier, I just like glossed over the fact it comes up so frequently now.
Mm.
I look at it differently. I know that people approach, their own mental health struggles with different perspectives, but I look at it as like the greatest gift that I've ever been given because now the work that I do is so heavily influenced by that experience. I'm able to like actually change people's lives or actually contribute to them changing their own lives. And it's just such a fantastic, like, thank God I went through that.
Mm. Totally. And I think, in our journeys, there's always, it's never a coincidence. That's always there to help us
Yeah.
grow and evolve, and then hopefully being able to share that gift with others, what you are so beautifully do. But when we are in this really dark space, obviously it's
Yeah.
hard to see that, oh, okay, great, I'm in this dark space so that I can evolve
Yeah.
on my journey and then I can share. Oh yeah, of course we can't think like that then. So this is why I really wanted to dive deeper into this. because, you know, it may look and sound like you've got it all together. You're super successful.
I don't.
You know, you're empowering others. And
I don't.
yeah, exactly. And for me, it's really, really important to make sure my audience understands that we are all the same. You know, no one has it all together. But yes, you and I, we might now have a toolbox that is helping us to maybe get quicker out of whatever we might find ourselves in. And it is this toolbox that you're offering to others as well, and holding their hand through the way. And it's funny because I wanted to ask you about, you know, what movement, physical exercise does to help this, but you already touched on it. And for me, it was the same. For me, it was too hard to go. I know so many go via the mental journey, like they sit in deep meditation and do all that. And for me, this was like just torture. I don't know. So for me as well, it was the physical way to find a way forward, to find a way through it, to feel myself again. And this is one aspect why I love your work so much, because I know you do this too. Can you just touch a little bit more on it? So what does this physical movement do? Why is it so empowering for us? I
think there's layers to it, right? Like, I think in the most basic sense, like, moving your body feels good. Like, just simply, like, you go out and you do some exercise, any type of exercise, come back to me and you're going to say, oh, I feel better than before. Like, without fail. And so, like, at the most basic level, like physiologically or psychologically, you can get deeper if you'd like, but it's like, I just feel better if I move. There's a sense of accomplishment, you know, or confidence, or, you know, goal setting and reaching your goals that begets other accomplishment and other goal setting and other wins. But I think, you know, I often say that physical fitness is the gateway drug into enhanced mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. And it's like, if that seems daunting for you, it's like, oh, meditation, or like, you know, the words spiritual and the words mental are often, you know, like black boxes to many people. Like, oh, that seems scary to me. The quickest way to get there is to just get into your body. Like, that's the goal of all this anyway, get out of your thinking mind and into your feeling body. And the same way that I said, you know, if you go out and do physical activity, you'll come back and you'll tell me that you feel better. If you start breathing heavy, you start sweating a little bit, if your heart rate gets up, pretty quickly you're going to drop out of your mind and into your body. It just happens. And it's a really cool thing. For me as a coach, like, most of the work I do is centered around resistance training. I love to challenge people with moving weight. There are many modalities of fitness. There are many ways to do all the things you could ever wish to do. For me, I love lifting weights. And it's been really special for me to see individuals who didn't think that weightlifting was for them to embark on a journey to get stronger, to feel more confident in their body, to potentially build relationships. And I think there's an aspect of fitness that is not often talked about, but the community aspect of fitness, or like the shared struggle aspect of doing something hard with other people, is such a valuable tool in increasing not only your capacity physically, but your ability to relate to other people, your ability to manage stress, your ability to, you know, do all the other cool things that physical fitness might offer you. So I work almost exclusively with small groups at this point now, just for those reasons. I think team-based activities are so much better than a one-on-one type scenario. But yeah, most basic sense, training allows you to access those other things that might seem like they're too far away. Moving your body is the low-hanging fruit.
Beautiful. I couldn't agree more with you. And I love how you put it, because I don't know about you, maybe not so much, but there's a lot of resistance with the clients that I made to moving. They have the perception that, you know, this is incredibly tough, and they won't enjoy it, and they aren't able to keep up with it, and all these things. And this is not what movement is about at all.
Right.
It's really about, for me, feeling yourself again, discovering your body, and like I said
Yeah.
before, to understand how amazing you actually can feel once you reach a little bit more vitality, once you feel a
Yeah.
little bit more alive, maybe have higher confidence, like all these things. That was the case for me.
Yeah.
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 Okay. But I want to quickly dive into nutrition with you, because I know you're nutrition coach,
Yeah.
so we have to talk about
Yeah.
nutrition. So
Yeah.
tell us.
It's actually my favorite. It's my favorite subject. My f-
Got
my
something in common
first
here.
my fir- my first ever solo coaching project when I was in my early 20s was a nutrition coaching business, more of like a group based like chat room type thing, and then that turned into me uh, working almost exclusively in nutrition for the first 5 years of my work. I love it. I
Mm.
love I love also how, similarly to, we talked about identities, right? People tie themselves to their nutritional identity. And I think that that's a cool thing. I think it can be damaging, but I think it's a cool thing when people can see the other side and realize that, like, there are a million ways to do this, in the same way that there are a million ways to move. There are a
Yeah,
million ways to meditate. There are a million ways to breathe. You just have to find whatever the sustainable one is for your life.
absolutely.
But go ahead. You were going to ask a question and I
Yes,
interrupted.
I want to know. So, what does healthy eating look like for you, or how do you help your clients
Yeah.
to, in quotation marks, eat healthy? Because, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. This word eating healthy
Yeah.
is a little bit tricky in itself, I find. But yeah.
Sure. I love that you use the word help, because that is all that I'm here to do. I work very intimately with the people that I coach, so I spend a lot of time in the same room as them.
Mm,
Uh, I tour most of the year with musicians. That's my primary coaching responsibility at the moment. And so I share meals with a lot of the people that I work with. So I try and lead by example first. I would never tell anyone how to eat. And if you consume any of the content that I put on social media or out into the world, it's just purely, most often, it's purely a recommendation of how I would choose to do it in a given circumstance. So I've tried all the diets. I've coached all the diets. I prefer an omnivore style nutrition protocol where I consume all foods, plants, animals, and everything in between. I'm of the belief that if you're omitting an entire food group or macronutrient source, you're probably missing the point. Maybe, probably, but it's up to you. And I think it goes back to the initial thing that I said, where it's like you need to get very clear about what the client says that they want, or what they uh, decide that they want, because without that information, it's going to be rather hard for me to tailor a sustainable, solution. And I think, just like training, nutrition needs to fit your life first.
mm,
It can't be the other way around. So I'm never going to ask somebody who's never consumed an animal product in their life to start consuming animal products, because that probably doesn't align with their identity or the way that they choose to live their life currently. Now, if it's something that they're interested in incorporating over time, there are many ways where we could start to introduce animal-based foods into their diet. But like, I'll just keep harping on, it's the next right manageable step.
mm,
That's the way that you get anywhere, is one small accessible step at a time. Personally, I can share how I choose to eat. I eat mostly red meat. I consume a lot of fruits. I eat white rice, potatoes, honey, yogurt, cheese. And then, personally, I consume a lot of candy. I eat a lot of candy. It's the thing that it brings me immense joy. And so I eat some form of candy nearly every day. And it's probably just, like a couple M&Ms or something like that. But it makes me so happy. And so I don't take it out of my diet.
mm. And I love that, because for me, healthy eating is all about balance. And
Yeah.
it's hard to get the balance. I can't always find the balance, but
No.
this is my intention always. And I find healthy eating is often misunderstood as, okay, now we can only eat whole foods and
Yeah.
only the greens and always have
Yeah.
to start the day, I don't know, with a green juice. And that's not what it is about. For me, this is misunderstood. But yes, like you said, individualizing is important. And also, I feel, or for me, it's the case when someone comes to me and they can't eat gluten and they
Yeah.
have, I have trouble eating carbs and obviously it's a mindset thing as well, but often there's something really wrong with their digestion. And once we
Sure.
address that, actually they are able to, unless they are true celiac, of course, but
Right.
often, they are then able to eat or introduce gluten again into their lives or whatever,
Yeah.
and feel great. So I think that, like you said,
Totally.
there are different layers to it. Okay, I would love to go into cold exposure with you because
Yeah.
this is something that I do every morning. And I've got a pool
Me too.
outside here. It's winter now, so it's pretty
Yeah.
freezing. And if you've seen my Instagram, I now put a hat on because otherwise I get too cold. It is cold. My girls lovingly call me the Smurf because they think
Yeah.
it's a beanie and I look blue. But I love it. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
really great to boost my dopamine levels. But for me, why I do it, I hate cold. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know anything about Ayurveda, but I'm very Vata, so Vata doesn't like cold at all.
Okay.
But for me, it's a mindset. If I build a muscle in my mind, if I can do this over and over again, it gives me that strength to do all the hard stuff that I am super scared of, but that I want to do and that I want to achieve in my life. And once I've done this in the morning, I think, okay, I can do anything today. So it'll be easy to, call this person or do this webinar or, this is why I do it. But yeah, there are so many more benefits, of course, to cold exposure. Tell me about this. And also, I know you had an amazing, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, but you had an amazing project last week. So tell us a little bit more about the cold exposure and, of course, also about breathing. As a yoga teacher, breathing is everything. So,
So I talked about, I'll give some, I talked about my roommate taking me to therapy, post suicide attempts. That was the first step in a long journey of discovering a number of wellness practices that have truly transformed my life. Therapy, somatic healing work specifically, has been so valuable. Breath work, I think, the second most valuable tool for me, something that I use every day. And then I would say third has been incorporating cold exposure or deliberate cold exposure into my regular wellness practice. And I also do cold exposure in some form every single day. I love a nighttime cold exposure just because I love it. It's an incredible way for me to cap off the day. But in the same way, I use it because it's something that I don't want to do. That is in the most basic sense, that is why I do it. I love the dopamine effects. I struggle with ADHD. I need more dopamine. I love the dopamine effects, but truly, for me, I don't like the cold. I want to get into something that's uncomfortable. And in the same way, just as you, I don't want to make that phone call. I don't want to send the email. I don't want to do the webinar. But because I do those other hard things, I do the cold exposure. I sit and do my breath practice. I sit and meditate, even though I don't want to. Then I feel comfortable, having accomplished those other things. I feel comfortable accomplishing these other tasks that seem daunting. Yeah.
Oh,
I love the incorporation though of my favorite contrast. So the classic contrast is hot and cold, temperature contrast. I love the contrast. I call it intention, but I love the contrast of the active and the passive. And so like you can use your breath as an active tool, and then the ice is a passive tool where you get in and it acts upon you. And there's just something so profound about having control with the breath, losing control as you enter the ice, and then regaining it while under that stress. Just an added confidence boost for me and for the people that I work with, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I could talk to you forever, Ben, but I feel I've already stretched the time quite a bit. So where
Yeah, we're
can
good.
we find you? Where can we get in touch with you, Ben?
Yeah, so most of the work that I do is word of mouth and referral based. So this year has been my massive step into being more public with my coaching practice. So I
Yay!
released an app. Yeah, it's a big deal for me. Really scary, but just because I do ice baths, I feel I feel better about stepping into the discomfort. So I just released a training app last month. That is at trainwithben.app. On the internet, or you can access it via my social media. My social media is at Ben V Smith, BenVeeSmith on both Instagram and TikTok. And then my website is the exact same, benvsmith.com. You can look for, basic training advice. My goal is just to provide simple wellness information to as many people as possible. So a lot of it centers around resistance training at the moment. I'm going to start rolling out more breathwork and mindset oriented things as we progress throughout the year, because that's the thing I'm most excited about. But because the app is so new, if you're looking if you're in the mood to check out some simple resistance training, or maybe add in resistance training to your regular fitness protocol, I think it's a great place to start. So I would love to train with you.
Absolutely amazing. And I can't
Yeah,
mention enough for how amazing your work is and what a huge fan I
thank
am.
you. Thank you
Three
very much.
quick golden nuggets. I know you've shared so much wisdom with us,
Send it.
but so
Yeah,
that my audience can remember three short pieces of wisdom that will help them,
yeah.
through, or they can remember and will elevate them.
3. So can we do them? I'll do one that is really important to me right now.
Awesome. Awesome.
So the one that I'm thinking of for myself is that nothing is permanent. That's been the biggest takeaway. That's been my
Yes.
biggest takeaway from all of the work that I've done, all of the therapy work, all of the exposure work, all of it. Nothing is permanent. Just like the seasons, everything changes. It always has and it always will. So whatever you're experiencing in this moment right now, whether it's good or it's bad, it's not permanent.
So powerful.
And I think that's rather freeing. I love that. The second piece, this is something that one of my earliest mentors shared with me. He said, you have to give to get. And I know that can be like misconstrued and taken in a different way, but for the longest time, for a long part of my life, I was so center focused or inward focused. And I'm like, how is this affecting me? How am I showing up in the world? How is it Ben? It's all Ben. And as soon as I switched my perspective to this outward facing thing where my only goal is to give, I have gotten so much more in return just because my sole focus is giving. So I like to remind myself you have to give to get. And then and these are all like, little sayings, but the last one I have written on my mirror in the bathroom. And then at the top of my page every morning, I do a journal practice every single morning. At the top of my page, I say, if happiness doesn't exist here, it exists nowhere. And it just puts things in perspective for me. Like if I can't be happy right here in this moment, then happiness doesn't exist anywhere. And so I'm just really committed to being present and grateful and excited for everything that comes next, knowing that it's not going to be permanent and knowing that it's all going to be all right.
I totally love it. You are such an inspiration.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm super grateful that you took the time to chat with me here today and
Thank you.
inspire and empower my audience. Honestly, you are amazing. I love your work. I love everything about you. Is there anything I have missed out on asking you that you would still like to mention? I would love to have you back as well. I'm sure my audience will love
Yeah,
you and the
let's do that.
interview. But if there's anything
Let's
that
do that.
you feel you would like to say now still.
No, I really appreciate the time. I'm incredibly grateful to share the work that I do, and if anybody's listening and they want to reach out, you know where to find me, and I'd love to continue the conversation. So I'm happy to come back. I'm happy to continue spreading the good word, but I'm just really appreciative of your time. Thank you.
And if you feel, the smallest inclination that Ben could be the right guy to work with you, then please do reach out to him, because his work is amazing. He is so much more than what he shows here right now. Obviously, it's just a small snippet that I can give you. Ben, honestly, thank you so much for the amazing work that you do. You truly help to make our world a healthier, happier place. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Ruth. I appreciate it.
Take care. I hope you loved and enjoyed this interview and episode as much as I did. If you did, then please do me a favor and help me spread health and this knowledge contained in my podcast all over the world. And you can do so by subscribing to, liking, sharing, and rating my podcast. This is the only way that more people will be able to find it. I know that you were born to feel absolutely wonderful in your amazing body, your brilliant mind, and your boundless soul. I know that you were born to live your best life. So what are you still waiting for? Please make sure you do. I am your biggest cheerleader. Keep glowing. Much love.